today we are co-hosted with NATEA. It is the core principle of both of our organizations that, working together and collaborating within the Asian communities is super important. And it makes our communities stronger. So I'm very glad to be here today with our NATEA friends. Gary and Jesse actually are both from NATEA. Today we will be interviewing Jesse Shiah, and he is a co-founder of AgilePoint and also the former president of NATEA Silicon Valley. So welcome everyone. My name is David Jang, chairman of Monte Jade West, and I'm joined here today with Gary Nee, president of NATEA. Just as a reminder, this event is recorded, and it will be posted on and also streaming online live today at NATEA's Facebook site. We will be posting it on our event website afterwards on both our YouTube and also our Facebook video sites. So please follow us there afterwards. Just as a quick reminder, if you have any questions, please utilize the Q&A function within Zoom. During the speaking period, our speakers will not be responding to questions, but during the Q&A segment later on, we will be responding. Feel free to say hello to your friends and peers in the chat. If you have any questions for the moderator, please feel free to raise your hand using the raise your hand function. And for best experience, make sure you're on a gallery view setting. Monte Jade was founded in 1989 by a group of Asian immigrants. They bonded together to support one another because they were under-networked and under-resourced. Through this community, billions of dollars of enterprise value was created and hundreds of companies were formed. Even to this day, Monte Jade is focused on building community. We do this today under 3 pillars. The first pillar is our interview series, which is focused on celebrating notable community leaders through understanding their personal journey and how they overcame some of the many struggles that they faced. This understanding of journey helps us better connect with great leaders to help the next generation of leaders advance. The second pillar is focused on technology forums in which we bring forward to our community new ideas to understand. This enables our members to discover new opportunities for investments, careers, or just for interests. Recently, we've held talks on venture investing, AI, biosciences, and also communications, just to name a few. The last but most important pillar of our program is our mentorship program. This is a 100% volunteer-run program focused on helping build the skill sets needed for future leaders. Eastern Asians continue to lag their peers and are underrepresented in a lot of corporate American technology companies. White males are promoted at 2 times the rate of Asian females, and white females are promoted at 3 times the rate of Asian females. This disparity has gotten worse over the last 2 decades, and it is Monte Jade's mentorship program's goal to help break through that problem set. We focus on deep engagements with small mentor families to ensure a long and focused engagement to drive success. If you know anyone that is interested, please send them to montejade.org/mentorship, and we will be taking applications for next year. At this time, I'd like to thank our virtual series sponsors. So in COVID, many of our great sponsors have moved to a virtual series sponsorship to support us during COVID. And we continue to thank them for their great support. So Deloitte, Venture Pact Law, UMC, Silicon Motion, New York Life, and Most as well. In a non-COVID world, normally we have our annual sponsors and we thank them for their ongoing support. And here are our sponsors for our annual event. Gary?
Yeah, hi. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, NATEA is a nonprofit organization, and NATEA offering the community platform to let our members make the cross-border connection and development their career on this platform. And the mission of NATEA is to improve the cooperation between the US and the Taiwan. NATEA is founded in 1991 by a group of the engineers and the scientists. NATEA's headquarters is in Silicon Valley. Currently, NATEA has 13 regional chapters in North America and 1 regional chapter in Taiwan. Okay, next. Yeah. So NATEA has every year NATEA hosts multiple events. We have the one event called the US Taiwan Startup Forum. This is it's the platform that the startup company between the Taiwan and the US, they have a chance to exchange the idea together. Then we also have the US Taiwan high-tech forum. Then we can bridge the different high-tech industry between the Taiwan and the US. Yeah, and we also have one co-host event with IEEE called the New Computing in Frontier. So we are bringing the latest research result to our member and the Taiwan and the US industry. We also have a lot of the seminar talk and the annual event. We also have some social event every month. Yeah, next. So this NATEA has a lot of sponsor. Without those sponsor, then NATEA cannot help us our members. Please support our sponsor like you support us. Yeah, yeah. Please join the NATEA's website and you can follow the NATEA's Facebook for the new event from NATEA.
Great, thank you, Gary. So I have the great pleasure today of introducing Jesse. He's the co-founder and chief executive officer at AgilePoint, also the former president for NATEA Silicon Valley, and also the vice president of NATEA as well in 2018. AgilePoint is a Silicon Valley-based company that delivers disruptive no-code, low-code innovation to democratize software application development. Prior to founding AgilePoint, Jesse was part of the initial team of DataViews, who pioneered visual-based real-time decision-making support systems. And as VP of Product Marketing and International Operations, he helped architect the sale to GE. Jesse was also the VP of Strategic Solutions at Uniscape. Jesse, welcome today. How's it going?
Thank you so much, David, for having me today. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, you bet. So yeah, I want to kind of start off and, number one, thank you for joining our panel interview series today. And I wanted to, the audience to learn a little bit more about your history and how you arrived here in the States. So can you kind of tell me where did your journey start off from?
Absolutely. And firstly, I just want to say, thank you for having this opportunity to meet some of the whoever's online, and I know a lot, maybe the Monte Jade members, and so love to share my experience in a way. So along the way, if you got any questions, yeah, definitely, send in your questions, right? Just to, demonstrate your question. So I got to the US, I believe it was 1987. Okay. So I was born in Taiwan. I was raised in Taichung. That's when I was born. And so, one thing I feel that is, if you were born in Taiwan, you always feel like Taiwan is your real home, right? But the thing is, but US is really offers, I think, a very, very different opportunities than in Taiwan. So, I mean, just like, so after I graduated in Taiwan, and I worked for 2 years, and we know Taiwan is very much hardware centric, right? Our IT industry is very, very much hardware centric. As a matter of fact, a couple of my teammates that we were working together in Taiwan, a few of them went on and started ASUS. Okay, so that, I mean, we got together at the beginning. We actually were in one of the company was funded by, in Taiwan, the Formosa Plastic Group, right? Yep. So we got a lot of factories, and in the factory there's a lot of industrial automation. They need to control a lot of those machines, and at that time, all the system was actually all come from Japan. Okay, but one of the challenge was that Japan would not transfer the technology. So that's kind of, we set up a team together, and we started out try to create those control systems by ourselves. Okay, so it's more like a single we call single board computer, right? So you build a more like embedded system, embedded board that you can put into a machine, you can control that. So that's kind of became, right? That was more like a, predecessors to some of my, like team members later on build the first, if you remember, that 8286 CPU motherboard, right, for Acer. And so they were in Acer for a couple of years, and then they went on and started ASUS, right? But at the same time, I mean, I was always wondering on the software side, right? So I decided to come to the US and to go to graduate school. And to be honest with you, right? I mean, somebody growing up in Taiwan, in a family, my parents, they are not, like I say, they didn't really, I mean, their highest education they received was junior high. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, of course, they want you to study hard. They say, hey, you got to study hard. You just have to go on to be an engineer, be a doctor, be an engineer, and but really, I mean, found out, when I coming out to the U.S., there's not much expectation. Really, there was not much expectation. Number one thing to me was that I got to have scholarships. Without scholarship, I cannot afford to come, right? So, and the other thing I was actually thinking about was that I say, okay, if we come to the U.S., as a matter of fact, at that time I actually did not apply a lot of school in California at that time. I actually applied a lot of school on the East Coast, okay, and so I got like accepted into Michigan, and Virginia, and Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, and Georgia. Georgia Institute of Technology, but I got 2 places that have scholarships, so I decided to go to. I went to UMass Amherst. So that's how I got started.
That's amazing. So like when you landed at Amherst, when did you feel like this felt more normal? Like when did you feel more like, oh, this is okay, I understand this area? Like, did you have things that helped you become more connected?
Oh yeah, I mean, as a matter of fact, I know that, first thing I found out was there were a whole bunch of students also came from Taiwan, right? We all went to Amherst, and they are students from Taiwan University, Tsinghua, Jiao Tong University. So, and one thing I found out is almost all my classmates, they got relatives. They got family, they got relatives in the U.S. But I was all by myself. Right? I was all by myself. So it was actually quite interesting in a way. But because of that, as a matter of fact, sometimes when you see things, the way I always see things is this. Certain things appear to you seemingly maybe one perspective, but as a matter of fact, it could be the other perspective, right? As a matter of fact, I found out is, when a lot of my classmates, they got relatives, they got families in the U.S., they are more likely, like when they have they almost like they go is after study, they going home. They're going someplace, right? So for me, I was more like by myself. Of course, I have the choice to, stay together in the same apartment with other students from Taiwan. But I make the decision at that time. I say, no, I want to stay with American students.
Oh, okay. That's a little different. So that you're getting yourself out of your comfort zone.
Exactly. And because and a part of the reason that I did not apply a lot of school, although I did apply a few that I got. I did have I-20 to Davis and Santa Barbara, but I didn't come to California. Of course, one thing is I didn't get scholarship. The second thing is I feel like it was too much Asian already. I want to get into. I want to really feel the difference, right? And so that's what of course, that's maybe part of how I grew up. When I grew up, we really have nothing. You cannot take anything for granted. So I probably have a more higher. You're not afraid to just go into a new environment. So I decided I want to stay with American students, right? But that was a dramatic, like I say, that was very dramatic at the beginning to see how things are different, how the living condition different.
So what was so different? Like if you had to what was so surprising for you when you first kind of came and lived with someone else?
So for example, right? We stay in a 2-bedroom apartments, and so we have 4 people, right? 2 share 1 rooms, and I have 3 Americans, and I was the only one, foreign students, and I found out, right? They almost don't, they do not study, right? They partying every day, and so ended up I have to, I stay at school, right? Because I have a scholarship and things. I have to do, I have to do a research assistantship. I have a teaching assistantship. Right, I almost working 40 hours a week already, a full time for just 2, and so I stay on school, on campus really, for a long time, and when I get home, but the thing is, when I get home, they always, they, what I found out was that they are a lot more social. right? They're a lot more social. They always have a lot of events. And the other thing is sometimes, of course, I mean, you know, things can gets pretty dramatic, right? I mean, you're supposed to have a roommate in your bedroom, but in the middle of the night, somebody will come in. Like, I mean, you have to get used to it. You know, you have to get used to it. But that, you know, like I say, I mean, in a way, that was actually the pretty, you know, it was a good experience in a way because you feel a lot more communicating, okay, with you know, with American students. You know, instead of what I found is that, I mean, all the students from Taiwan, they stay together, they go to class, they back home, and they back home, they play mahjong, right? So they really live still very much of the, you know, the cultural, right, from Taiwan. And but that also give me the courage, right, in a way. So, you know, as part of the research assistant, I mean, there are different type of things you can do, right? A certain type of thing you basically just go and do the work, right? So I chose to, you know, the task to actually have to mentor, have to be the coach to the, you know, and basically the, you know, computer center, right? So there are a lot of students and professors although they're in engineering school, but they're not computer science, right? So they still need help. So I actually chose to do that to, you know, to mentor them. So that forced me have to really kind of talk to them and so I just stay in our community.
Right, that's good. I mean, like, that means you were able to improve your communication skills, probably better listening skills to understand what someone else's problems were, and you're essentially, you chose a very different path than a lot of your friends. So that's very brave. You know, after UMass, Amherst, you know, where did you end up going for your first job? Like, how did you decide where you wanted to go?
Yeah, it was, you know, it was another thing very interesting, right? I mean, so when I got into the program, that was, you know, supposed to go up to PhD, right? And after I done, so because of that, right, for my master's, I was also working on the thesis already, more like you setting up, more like you setting up the foundation, half of the work for your PhD. But then that was 1990, and then 3 years later, that was around 1990, 91. So that's when I think America experienced first was layoff, right? What, you know, you remember IBM, Wang Computer, Digital. I mean, those are the old, of course. I mean, that's kind of reflecting how old I am already. But most, you know, like I say, all the industry started crumbling, right? And like IBM, and people were talking about whether IBM is gonna survive, right? And but at the same time, I was still in school. Right? I was still in school. I was supposed to go on to my PhD, but then I was asked to have to pick, right? Say, hey, are you gonna do artificial intelligence or are you gonna do traditional systems? In fact, there was another trend of artificial intelligence back from 1980.
That's right. That's right.
It extends into 1990s, but at that time was more expert system, more heuristic systems. Right, it's less of the machine learning, but it's trying to accomplish the same thing, right? The computer visions and the predictions and everything. And so you know, I actually looked at that. I went, you know, I have to take a couple classes, and I say, I just don't see this, you know, this artificial intelligence is gonna go anywhere, because if you think about it, the computing trend was mainframe in 1970s, 80s, and 80s become workstation, 90s go into more like a PC, right? Personal computer. It from centralized into decentralized, right? So there's not power. There's no computing power to do those artificial intelligence. So that kind of got me to decided. I say, hey, you know what? I think I want to go out there to see what's happening in the market before I continue, right? So I talked to my advisor, and he said, what are you gonna do? I mean, there's such a bad market out there. Is people get laid off everywhere. But I gave a try. But because the experience I had in Taiwan, right? As a matter of fact, hey, I got 5 offers. Okay, and three offers was in California. One from HP system. I mean HP, Intel. As a matter of fact, I didn't go to Intel. Otherwise, I'll be colleagues of Gary. And the other one, Sun Microsystems. And then there was another one. There was another one in Boston. I mean, in the 495 area, right? It's Moscow computer, more like a supercomputer, Stratus computer. And so, but I didn't come to the. I mean, I consider, because what I was thinking about back then, I was actually thinking about to start something already.
Oh, so you already want to be an entrepreneur at that time?
To tell the truth, that was actually planned it when I was in Taiwan, when I was in junior high. My junior high, I went to a Catholic school.
Yeah.
Okay, it's called Viator. Okay, in Taichung area, right? I'd say most of people probably, you know, if you're looking to how to get into a good high school, a lot of people try to get into that school, junior high, and when I got into that school, I found out all my classmates are coming from rich and famous and powerful families, and but I was, you know, obviously I didn't belong, you know, to that at all. But I found out, right? I found out a lot of, you know, when I went to their home. I remember, right? You know, for example, their elder sisters or brothers would say, "Hey, they remember their parents when they were very young. They have to live from like 5 a.m. in the morning, or they get a small machine in the living room, and then gradually become a big, you know, having a factory and things." So kind of planted the seed in my mind that you can get started small and then you can grow, right? So as a matter of fact, I was actually, so when I had those offers, I didn't choose to go. I didn't go to Intel, Sun Microsystems, HP. Of course, everybody say you crazy, you stupid. Why?
Yeah.
You don't want to do that. And one of the thing, and the other one, Stratus was more like a like mid-end supercomputer kind of company. I didn't go there either. So I ended up, and of course, part of that is my advisor didn't want me to leave, right? So there was a small team just trying to start up something in Amherst. Okay, that was actually the data views. So they were like 2-3 people just trying to starting up, and so they introduced them. So my advisor introduced me to them, and then we talked, and so we got started. So, but the condition was that it's compared to the offers I'm receiving from the 3 companies in California, there's only 1/3.
Right.
Only 1/3, right? So, but I feel like I want to go through a process of learning, see how something can go started from nothing to something. So that's how I started there.
Yeah. So at Data Views, I know you were doing a lot of visualization work, right? So like, you know, take me through like that type of work. What did you learn at that first job that kind of set you up for your next one?
Yeah. So that was actually like I say, Data View was actually, I stayed there for almost 9 years. But I got in, right? Like I said, I was one of the first 3 or 4 people get started, but I was on the R&D side. But I really almost gone through every part of the operations in the company, right? Later on, until we get sold to, we sold GE ID9. Okay, so it was actually very to me. We, like I say, I mean, how we got started. I mean, I don't think most people can even envision, right? For example, we got 5 people got started, but we only have 2 some microsystem workstations. So what do I have to do? You know, somebody have to come in. You know, you have to come in at 5 a.m. in the morning. You use a computer until 8:30. You surrender to someone, and then you try to use that again after 5 p.m. During the day, you try to write programs on paper.
Wow.
You know, it was like I said. I mean, that's how we really got started. But what we are trying to do later, right, was actually part of the research, what we are doing, right? Part of the applying the AI research. As a matter of fact, even with AgilePoint, the know-how were actually found, there. So what we're trying to do was it was a visual real-time decision support system. What that means is there's a lot of systems you have to respond to changes in real time. It's not like we build application today. Like you tell me requirements, I write a code. That's exactly what the requirement says. It's more like what's the requirement, then you develop the system to do that. But basically, the system that you have to respond to. You have to respond to things that happening in real time, right? Give you an example, right? From being used a lot in military, right? War game system. If somebody in a war, you cannot predict how things will happen, right? You go to a nuclear power plant, right? There's an emergency command control system. When disaster happens, how do you respond to that, right? Or even with any type of disaster recovery systems, any type of like even you go to the telecom, right? Telecom with the network monitoring, they cannot predict how the traffic will will actually evolve, and then you have to respond to that. So there's a lot of system like that, right? So that's kind of what so in a way, right? So almost like you cannot code. So you don't think you have to visually, right? You have to find a way to abstraction and visually to do that, and to do those kind of architectures. As a matter of fact, if we were joking, even today I was saying that if we bring all the computer science students together, we will agree very quickly. It can only be done a certain way. So we actually have, and this is actually interesting part in a way, right? It's really about always thinking about outside of the box, right? So we actually have people starting apply mathematics, music. So their job is to push the envelope and challenging the abstraction to make
fascinating
thing that possible, right? So again, now, I mean, I think from here, this is actually something that is interesting in a way that it's more about cross discipline, right? Cross discipline, and this is not about just it's not about just a product. It's actually when you come to individuals as well, right? Individuals as well, being able to have that cross discipline type of skills is very, very important today, right? I mean, we can get into that in more details.
Right. No, definitely. I mean, that's pretty amazing. And this is actually, it ties exactly back to like your decision when you came to America to stay with Americans as opposed to other Taiwanese, right? Because this is effectively cross communications in different verticals, different domains. And so it almost seems like this became a natural evolution for you where it became almost second nature to kind of expand a little broader.
Yeah. I mean, like I say, definitely, I mean, you have to try to get out of the comfort zone, really. I mean, and dare to do that, really. Dare to do that, because that's the only way that you'll be able to acquire that cross-discipline type of skills, right? And I can tell you that without the love user experience, I would not be doing AgilePoint today.
So so once you sold to GE on the data view side, what was your next step? What was the next evolution before you got to Agile?
Yeah, so that was 99, right? I mean, and at that time was a .com, there was a .com frenziness going on in California, and we were on the East Coast, right? And you don't know what's going on. I mean, really, you don't know much what's going on in California. You only know. And it was also funny that culture-wise, it's very different. Very different. And I can tell you that when I was in views, I have colleagues, right? Husband wants to move to California, and wives did not want to move to California, and they decided to divorce.
Wow.
Okay, because wife would not consider. I mean, like I say, out later, I constantly hear people talking about, like, they think about California as like a la la land. They don't consider it to be real America to some extent. And but after I got to California, I really see the difference to some extent. Okay, but it was interesting that we saw the GE, and but as a matter of fact, in data views, right, there's a lot of things happened. Okay, a lot of things happened there. I was a research engineers, and as a matter of fact, my goal at that time was I want to stay in engineering for 18 months, and then I want to leave engineering. I want to go into sales marketing. I kind of set a path like that. But 6 months into when I was in R&D, the company came to me and said they want me to go to work as a pre-sales for international. We're gonna establish a new division. I say no. I declined, right? I declined, and because I have my goal, right? I say, hey, I'm gonna stay here for 18 months, and then another 6 months later, they came to me again, right? They came to me again, and they say they want me to move. So I say, why you guys keep on coming back? Coming to me. They say, you know what? Our R&D department used to be very quiet. Since you joined, we hear the laughter every day. So they say we think you'll be better in out layer in sales. But as a matter of fact, I actually took that. So I left R&D much earlier than what I planned. And but first thing I got into, so I became more like be the pre-sales of the international department. So I need to sign up distributors from Japan, from Germany, from France, from globally, right? Then the next thing I found out was they say, hey, unless your software support language, we cannot use it. So anyway, and you talk about the mentor, right? The mentor. As a matter of fact, our president, the CEO, was a big mentor to me. Right? He was actually the senior vice president of digital before, so he managed 20,000 people under him, and he retired. and he got bored. That's why he kind of took the CEO job of Data Views. But I learned a lot from him, really. But from that perspective, right, at the beginning, so I want to find out that nobody's gonna sign up to be a distributor unless you're software supported language. By the time to make a software support different language, our revenue at that time was less than $1 million at that time. And we talked to consulting firm. They say to do that, it's going to cost you $1.5 million. Of course, it's impossible. So what I decided to do is I started working on it myself. Okay, after during the weekend. But one thing I really learned, right? I mean, because I feel like I cannot just sit here. Right. Everybody say, hey, you have to tell CEO, say, without that, you cannot sell. But I started working on it every, after 5 during the weekend. And sometime during the weekend, right, the CEO came in. I mean, he's a Jewish, right? I mean, he's Jewish American. And he saw me later and he say, are you sure you want to do this by yourself? I say, I have to give it a try, right? But every day, I can tell you that my American colleague at that time, they walk by my cubicle, right? And they say, it's 6 p.m., for example, 6:30. They say, is that you still working on that? I say, yes. I say, did they promise you what you're gonna get if you get this done? I say, no. Why? They say, then why are you doing it? It's a very different mindset, right? Very different mindset. I think, and that's what I'm saying, right? I mean, this Asian mindset. I mean, I think our mindset, right? But then a year later, I got it done. I got a prototype working, and then the orders started coming in. So to the point that international department, right, 20% of the revenue only in the first year, but it's already 80% of the company profit.
Wow, that was a huge change.
That's a huge change. And then the second day was, my CEO promoted me to manager of the international business, division, right? And but then that's when a lot of my colleagues went and say, hey, if this is a reward, why didn't you tell us earlier? So, and the thing is, but I heard that, like you say, during the weekend when the CEO saw me working, right? I remember he told me one thing. He said, okay, consider you paying your dues.
Yeah.
I remember, I mean, like I say, he says that, he said, consider you paying your dues. He said, when I was young, I paid a lot of dues, right? So I think that's where it was, so I think that's where the US is different in a way, right? I mean, it's really about if you really perform, if you can find a way to perform. But the other thing is, in the way I see that is, I think one very big difference is that I always tell people, I say, even you are just one person in a company, you only have one job, treat yourself as you are more like a startup company. You are a startup. Okay, your colleagues are all your partners. They are all your partners. How can you get them to want to work with you? How do you want them to see you as a partner, right? But that's a mindset, right? You have to really think about that in a way.
I'll say that's a very unique mindset, right? Because not everyone has that mindset. You have this mindset of like, it doesn't matter if I'm just an employee, but this is my business.
Absolutely, yes.
Right. And so what can I do to help the business? I don't care if I need to work over the weekends. I don't care if I need to do these things and do more. It's not on the job description. Like, it's almost, you have this mentality of like, don't tell me about the job description. I'm going to do what's right.
Yeah. But one thing, I think, remember, right? My colleagues, they will walk by my cubicle every day, 6:37, and they kind of say, what are you doing this? They did not tell you what you're going to get. I mean, if you get it done, the way I see that is, especially when you're young, right? I always tell people, I say, when you're young, you want to be a sponge, right? You want to take in as much as possible. More like, give me more, right? Give me more. And because being a sponge, right? Because the way I see that is, whatever you get, whatever you learn, it's going to be under your belt. Nobody can take it away from you. Nobody.
It's so true.
I mean, the earlier you do that, the more, right? You're going to become, and then you enable you to become a lot more resourceful.
Agreed.
A lot more resourceful.
Well, so this is a funny thing, right? because I talk to I do mentorship, especially at Monte Jade, quite a bit. When I talk to a lot of the mentees there, is like, you should volunteer. Like, even volunteering, not just from a work standpoint, but from a nonprofit standpoint, you get to develop a lot of different skill set. You meet a lot of different people. Absolutely. And you get to like practice a lot of the skills that you may not have the opportunity to test in a work environment. But it's all about what you're talking about. It's absorb, maximize, absorb,
Absolutely.
learn, be hungry, right?
Absolutely. Because like I say again, whatever you learn, I mean, that you spend more time, you learn, and those are under your belt. Nobody can take it away from you anymore. That becomes
right.
yours, right?
So
as an opportunity to do that, opportunity to learn is so important, right?
That's right. That's right. So it's super interesting because, at Data Views, you had already an entrepreneurial bug. It was obvious, right? Like if I'm the CEO over there, I'm looking at you, I'm like, oh, this guy is really hungry. Like, how do we keep this guy around, right? Like that's important. So what made you ultimately jump and start AgilePoint? What was that kind of trigger?
So yeah, so I mean, eventually, like I say, I mean, we sold out to GE. Okay, so a company to GE in '99, and then one of my my team members, right? He decided to move to California. I mean, he was from Taiwan as well. He decided to move to California, so he wanted me to do a reference call for him. So one day I was on the phone. I still remember that was in November of '99. And I was on the phone doing the reference call for my team members, right? And I mean, the person I was talking to was a co-founder of the company Uniscape. Mm-hmm. And so we did a reference call, and then he started telling me about .com. Okay, what's happening, that in California at that time. So he told me, he said, they plan to go IPO, right? At that time, everybody tried to go IPO. Everybody was like going IPO. And so they were saying that, they say, we already have 3 rounds of funding already. Okay. And the last round of funding before IPO, they want to find someone is really more like a famous VC. So they can pair them up with the top tier investment banker, right? So the VC they have in mind was Sequoia. And but they presented to Sequoia twice. Sequoia couldn't quite get the value. So that's when I say, hey, so try to understand what they're doing, and then I give him some ideas, right? I say, hey, you may consider reposition this to some extent. And again, right, those were what I learned, through Data Views. And secondly, he started calling me. He said, hey, what are you going to do next? Why don't you come and help us? Right? So it was a big move, right? You've got to move the family from there to California, and of course the school systems, because we were in the town with good school systems, but I still remember I came to California on February 23rd.
Wow, that was a fast transition. February
23rd, I landed in San Francisco, and one of the conditions my wife said was that you got to find a good school, right? If you're going to do it, you got to find a good school. So I was told Palo Alto and Cupertino.
Right.
So first thing I got off SFO, I got in there, I say Palo Alto, okay? And then ended up I got into East Palo Alto. That was my first experience of the Silicon Valley, was East Palo Alto. And I say, this cannot be, how can it be, how can it be like this? Then I found out it was East Palo Alto. Right? But anyway, so that, I mean, so the at that time, right, I mean, the company, I remember I went to the office, it was right across from Oracle, right? There used to be a hotel there called Sofitel, right across there. And I got into the, walk into company, you see all the desks on the aisle, right? Basically, there's no space, right? The whole aisle, there's a desk, one next to each other. I mean, because that conferencing, I guess. And then, so I actually stayed in the hotel for 3 months. Reposition the whole marketing, reposition the marketing messaging and everything. So we make the presentation back to Sequoia in May 2000. And remember at that time, I mean, NASDAQ was like 5,000 point, almost like 5,000 point at that time. And in May, we made a presentation to Sequoia. We got a funding from Sequoia with a revised messaging and everything. Everybody was thinking about it would be a small selling now. In July, I think the whole market just started tanking.
Collapsed, yeah.
Started tanking. And that really got me interested. Because I say, why? So I joined a lot of, more like a meetup group similar type of events, and listened to a lot of ex-CEO, ex-CFO, and like VP of sales, VP of marketing. And I got one thing. Everybody was saying that we thought we invest a lot of technology. We thought we were getting business agility. and they did not.
Mm-hmm.
They did not. Okay, and then that was one of the big things I heard, and then I started giving me the idea, say, wow, I think the kind of technology we developed, right, it's gonna be, because if you want things to change dynamically, cannot be code.
Right.
You cannot code. Once you started coding, you started losing agility. Really, I mean, doesn't matter what, you start losing agility, right? So that's what gave me the idea of the knowledge that we have, the know-how, and I think there's a room now for commercial. Remember, I say that the customers, data views, our customers are some of the largest, more like military, right? Mm-hmm. Telecom, and like all the spatial, more like spatial advanced niche domains, mm-hmm. but not commercial. Sure. But that gave me the idea that, I mean, after saw the .com crash, after I listened to that, and I think there's a room for commercial opportunity. So that's when I decided to leave. Although, I mean, good. I mean, like I said, a lot of .com crashed, right? Our company was okay because we repositioned, and it was okay. But I decided to leave to start up AgilePoint. Of course, everybody say you're stupid again. I mean, even the first, like I say, even the first one, I didn't go to Intel, didn't go to HP, and that was already, everybody say you're stupid. And the same thing, right? I decided to leave at that time of .com crash and start AgilePoint. Same thing. Everybody say, what are you doing? The market's so bad out there, right? And again, I mean, this is the way that, I mean, again, I mean, I think we being, especially, I mean, we born in the Asian family, mm-hmm. the cultures, mm-hmm. we tend to be taught just be content.
Right.
Okay.
Stay safe.
Right? Exactly. Find something, just like parents always want you to be a doctor or engineer, right?
Right. Stable.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. And I think for us to go outside of that, right, we need to try to get more of our, the younger generation to see differently. Right. Sure. And one thing is, you're not there to take, not there to be outlier, right? Because what I would say is more like, if you look at the normal distribution curve, mm-hmm. that will never change. Right. The majority will always be the center part of, like, 90% of this, and if you're not in the middle part of that majority, people see you an outlier, right? You can only have two type of outlier. You are the one that on the top, on the top 5% or 3%, or the bottom one, right? But the thing is, but it doesn't matter, right? Even you're on the top, you were thinking different. People will challenge you. Mm-hmm. Parents will challenge you, right? So I think that's one thing that, I mean, but maybe because I grew up really poor, and I feel like I've never have anything anyway, So it's more day, like I say, I mean, so I say, no, do something, if you're gonna do something that could have an impact. So that's kind of, I decided to leave Agile, leave the, I mean, Uniscape, although it's a very good pay, right? Very good pay, but I decided to, to start AgilePoint.
So you have actually a very supporting family and a wife, right? I mean, like, your wife was okay with you taking these types of risks. These are big decisions, right?
Not okay. No, she's not okay. She was not okay at all. My wife's family, and totally different family. Her mm-hmm. family is exactly what we're talking about.
Very conservative.
Just be stable, right? Be stable, right? I mean, to be honest, right? I mean, the first number of years, in the way what we are trying to create the AgilePoint, right? The local, one thing is, remember, right? I say, if you want agility, you have to cut on coding, right? And that's like, the market was not ready for that. IT will say, you are trying to take away my job,
right?
but the business needs to operate at a different level,
right?
And that's why in the US, right, you hear about the business IT divide, the divide between business and IT. Mm-hmm. Right. The thing is, how can you really enable business? I mean, that's a difference. So there's a visionary IT, right? So our customers at the beginning are more visionary IT. But the thing, what I'm trying to say is, when we started trying to do AgilePoint, the market was not ready. Right. Market was not ready, and that also explained to some extent, until today, we have not raised funding.
Right. Well, I mean, you've built your business very, very differently, right? It's like the antithesis of fast growth, $1 billion raise. Like, you have literally bootstrapped and slowly but steadily kind of built because you were so early in the market. So how did you recruit and build teams with that vision? I'm very curious about this. How do you sell people on that?
Yeah, like I say, I mean, so really, right? And then really, I think this is another part of it, right? This is another part of it, right? It's about how do you influence people, right? And I can tell you that the best way to influence people is that your passion, believe in certain things, shows without naturally. Right, and I think that's really, really important, right? I mean, to be honest with you, so I started AgilePoint, and I find a few people, right? I mean, locally here that I got to know, and I explained to them the idea, the vision, and so people bought in. A few, like I say, the first few team members, and what I could explain to them is what I say on the whiteboard, right? And I still remember in 2006, we started, so we founded AgilePoint in 2003, right? So first we have to re-implement the know-how, right? And we make decisions at that time, like you want to do in Java, you want to do in Microsoft. So I decided to do in Microsoft.NET. Microsoft just came out with .NET, right? .NET was, and it was not because of technology. As a matter of fact, from technology perspective, we should have gone with Java, because Java is a lot more mature, J2EE, a lot more mature. And that's why again, it's our comfort zone, because in prior, we built everything on Java.
Right.
.NET is new, right? But I decided to do in .NET for business reasons, right? Because I say, I don't want to build another thing, right? I don't want to build another thing that's only Java typically is like Global 2000, the 2000 big companies, right? I want that to be able to go into the mid-sized companies or even small business. Right, because you want to build a business now. You want to, like I say, you want to make sure that you are not boxed into. I mean, if you can do that, right? So again, right, that's another, making decision. Although it's similar technology decision, but it's really driven by the business, right? By the business vision. So it took us 3 years to kind of replicate the know-how, to prove that you can work on .NET, and it was interesting that and so we were thinking about to go to market, and I have a classmate who actually worked on Sand Hill Road, right? I mean, so he said, hey, why don't you talk to VC? So I still remember one of the VC I talked to, he was going to give us $2 million. He won 50% of the company. And I say, no. And I still remember what he said. He said, then you were going nowhere. I still remember. That's exactly what he said. He said, then you were going nowhere if you don't take the money, right? And again, I mean, the reason we didn't take money to some extent was that we know the market was not fully ready, right? Mm-hmm. Basically, what we are saying is you want things to have agility, right? There are two types of applications. One type is process application. The other type is application, not just a regular application. But in the process domain, you've been hearing people talk about continuous improvement for years, but nobody can do it, right? But our architecture enables that. Right away, we getting company coming to us, large companies, and they say they are solving the continuous process improvement without going back to IT to change coding. So that's how we got started. To have some customers, they started using our technology, and but again, right? Again, I mean, a lot of those decisions and thinking. Today, last week I just talked to one, like one of the investment banker was saying that no code. They say more and more they consider that to be the second most important trend for IT. There's one of the trend is cloud computing. Cloud computing make computing more like pervasive.
Sure.
Right. And secondly is how do you make application pervasive? And today, the way we do it is just too slow. Too much
overhead. Yeah.
Too slow. And once you create it, become a legacy, become a burden, right? So anyway, so now the market is getting, market's definitely getting ready, right? We got a lot of investors coming to us. And what's funny was that, we met with about 5 of them. Everybody come with a PowerPoint for us, right? They prepare PowerPoint. Yeah, why they're better. Right. So it's, again, it's kind of different, right? I mean, you really seen just different way of getting started,
Definitely.
But and again, I mean, I think one thing is really to, a couple of things as we talked so far, right? Is really don't be afraid to take on more, right? See that as opportunity. You know, the thing is, hey, I run a company, right? When I have a challenge, I'm also looking at who should I give this to,
Right.
At the same time, right?
Well, let's talk about that. How are you building your team? How do you think about talent? Like, what are some of the struggles that you've had? Because like as any CEO, you're always going to struggle with talent. Like maybe you hired this great person, you thought they were going to work out. Man, something's wrong. Like, what happened here? Like, so tell me about your talent strategy and your vision there.
Absolutely. I mean, so like I said, I along the way I also learned, right? Because the way I always hold a very high standard to what I do myself, right? And that's why I also, and the one thing, even I send an email to someone, customer, even a regular email, every email I'm sending, I'm picturing myself in the other person's shoes, reading that email. How would they perceive? And that's more like you have to get that into your system, right? Always think about yourself in their shoes, and in the customer shoes, and that's super important. And then obviously without funding, right? How do we get people? Right? I can tell you that. I mean, really one thing is, and people also say, how can you like you say you're gonna die in Silicon Valley, doing this way, but our people has been with the company more than 10 years, right? Well, the one thing, of course, I think is that the vision, right? I mean, the way that I picked, pen the vision, in a way, our vision here is not about just build up great technology, make a lot of money, because part of that is we believe this will impact, right, the digital divide. Right? Remember the internet. Remember internet. People already talk about digital divide now. People have no access to internet. They're gonna get left behind. And now with the fourth, industrial revolution, right? People talking more and more now, right? People talking about if you are not familiar with technology, not familiar with software application development, you're gonna get left behind. And that's on the other hand, right? On the other hand, is that we believe the technology, right? You democratize that. It's not about just democratize for business, for the business market. I think that will change, that will enable, that could empower, right? Empower someone, just like what we're saying right now. Hey, I think somebody, they can be sitting in a very small village, right? In Philippines or in Indonesia or in somewhere. They could actually learn something, learn this and be productive, and they can deliver solution if they have know-how, right? So that's the other thing. What we, like I say, more like what's your social responsibility or why you're doing this, right? Besides, of course, you want to build, it's a business for profit, but what else, right? And I think we got a lot of people buy into that kind of vision as well, right?
So you really sold the culture of the business, right? The mission. It was a very mission forward sale when you were hiring employees, it sounds like.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And so of course the other way is, but then you really have to show, right? And so one thing, and remember I say that coming from the East and the West, one thing is very different is that on the East, right, on the East Coast, the culture has been more like, if you say you're gonna do something in 5 years or 3 years, every year you have to come more like a checkpoint.
Milestones.
You have to more somewhere, you have to be certain, you have to make some progress, right? On the West, it's more of a lot of time of exactly, it's more like this.
It's more exponential.
Potential, this is like 5 by 9 kind of thing. I mean, potential. Right. I'll give you one example, right? Once was interviewing a controller, and I post out later in one day, I got like more than 200 resumes. I was like, what's going on? I mean, usually you have one controller in one company, right? And then when I interview with some of them, and then I got a pattern, right? The pattern is that I say, so why are you looking for a job? They say, oh, the company get acquired or something. I say, oh, then I hope you make some money. They say, no, it was a fire sale. Ooh. So what do you mean? What do you mean? They say, oh, we raised the funding and we burn through the money. Okay, we burn through the money and then we just have to. And I say, so I asked the question, I say, okay, if that's what happened with your company, how can I trust to hire you to be a controller? So they told me to say, I have no control because that's how the VC want us to do.
Yep.
Okay. So they were saying that, they say, it's not about, they say, oh, 5 years, even I'm the, like 4.5 years now, or like 2 months before, you still cannot say I failed because something could happen magically in the last 2 months.
Right.
A mindset, right, is very different. Right?
It's very different.
It's very different, very different. And like I say, I mean, definitely, although we're in Silicon Valley, but we're actually building, the mindset is very different. You know,
Yeah, it's very
a
different.
lot more, the team can see things are, we are moving forward. We are accomplishing.
Well, it sounds like you're measuring like velocity as opposed to like specific milestones, right? Like, is the team moving faster? Are you engaging better with the customers? Are you getting traction versus you need to hit this number, this number, this number? And I think there's like a really interesting dynamic here. And this is, I think, personally for me, like I have also a very similar frustration with like the venture capital community, because they're very like IRR driven in a certain window. So then they can raise their next fund, right? There's like this time pressure. And so you don't have this like evergreen approach of some of this.
Exactly. I mean, in a way that, I mean, even right now, as I mentioned, that we got a lot of gross PE investors coming to us, top 10 investment bankers are coming to us, right? And because they consider technology we're building right now is really what's needed for the market, right? Digital transformation, and also the pandemic, the automation, because company have to put in a lot of automation as fast as possible to make the remote working much easier. But the thing is, at the same time, I was joking with them. I say, hey, if I raised funding 10 years ago, we probably not here. This platform will not be here today, because investors will not let us build it. They will not let us build it, right? But the other thing is, so I mean, we talk about startups. There are different types of startups, right? Obviously, you can build a point solution, right? A point solution is like, okay, like CRM, right? Like HR, or like doing something specific, right? You can build something like that, or you can build. I mean, what we're trying to build is more like a platform. Like I said, it's a paradigm shift, right? It's a paradigm shift.
You're hitting that long tail. You're hitting that long tail that's non-economical for everyone else to drive to for point solutions.
Exactly. I mean, obviously, right? Obviously, what we do is a lot more difficult to get ramped up initially.
Mm-hmm.
But once you ramp up, the potential is many. Just like it's no different, right? The VC we're talking about in the cloud computing, originally they invest a lot of SaaS. They say no, they're gonna invest in platforms as service versus SaaS, because SaaS is more like a point, right? Point application, right? Platforms as service, you can build a lot. You can enable a lot of different SaaS on top, right? So it's the same idea, but it's a lot more difficult.
That's
right. You try to ramp up, right? To ramp up and try to find customers on the platform.
You need patient capital.
Absolutely.
And you need patient board members. So I'm very curious, right? Like, what type of person do you put on your board that also buys into this vision that continues to hold you accountable to push you forward, but understands it? Like, how do you think about that?
As a matter of fact, right, and that's why we're finding, we're finding the kind of advisors, the board, are the type of people that they see the market, the certain industry have to be revamped, right? So they kind of see that. I mean, it's sharing the same vision that whatever we have right now, right, needs to be revamped, right? For example, one of our in the healthcare industry, right? I mean, one of our advisor board members. I mean, like I say, he sees the healthcare industry. There's a lot has to be revamped. If we're gonna be able to provide more affordable care, right, and in the public health, but it's still individualized, individualized services, right? So we have people sharing the vision like that, right? And so we feel like it's a mission. It's a mission to make it, like I say, to make it. We know what we do. If we really want to say, let's just make it become a lifestyle company, just get revenues. I mean, we can be very comfortable, right? But it's more about how can we make a difference, right? How can we make a difference? I mean, so we find people kind of sharing that from different industries with that kind of aspiration.
That's fantastic. Right. So let me ask, like, so now that you're now almost a decade plus in, right? So you're almost 17 years into AgilePoint now.
Yes.
How has your leadership style changed from the beginning to now? Like, how would you say that has evolved?
Yeah, I mean, like I say at the beginning, definitely. I mean, like I say again, right? When I remember what we're saying that, I mean, we have to be learning. We have to be a sponge, right? I have to learn. I have to learn every day as well at the same time. So absolutely, I mean, I learned from a lot of people I work with. Even, for example, I was in NATEA, right, for a couple of years. I learned from NATEA. Some of the board members, together, we work together, they work at different companies, and I can see their style. I'm learning from that as well. And because, like I say, I mean, that we have to continue to do that. And but specifically, right? And I can share some very interesting examples, right? Very interesting examples. At the beginning, remember I say that I'm hold myself to a much higher standards.
Yeah.
Right? So I kind of expect people work with me. Sometimes there are two types. One is we work so well together. The other one is just like I cannot stand. Okay, I can stand. But like you say in the U.S., I mean, you will see that if you find somebody not performing well, you make decision very quickly, very quickly, right? And what I learned over the years, right, is that especially that when you don't have a lot of funding, just go out and hire so-called this is people with a lot of experience,
professionals,
right? Exactly. And so we always find people. We find people with that's why everybody told us as an interview was they when the interview with our company very different. They say with our company they feel like go through the checklist. With us, we are more about we want to understand the person as a person.
Sure.
Okay, the personality, what's the thinking, right? I mean, we try to understand the person because we kind of try to see how can this person fit in and then be able to grow, right? Because we have to grow our people, because otherwise we cannot hire those like professional,
right?
Because I mean we have to use a lot low, like I say, not as much, funding be able to hire people, but we have to rely on people can grow,
right? So and I think that's a great kind of point. And I think this is an underappreciated point, especially with like entrepreneurs, bootstrapped entrepreneurs that do not have the luxury of these fat VC checks. We need to be thinking about the business differently. It's about exactly what you said. It's all about how do I grow the team? Because if I grow the people, the talent will actually accelerate us much faster. Absolutely. It's a very different philosophy.
Absolutely. I mean, like I say, so I'll give you one example, right? So this is a way that, even with some new people right now, we are hiring a little more people, a little more so-called professional now. There are more of those people coming. And for example, right, I mean, one thing I tell them, right, they would tell me, for example, they would tell me certain things like this person's not functioning. We should just make, and I tend to tell them, I say, I learned to give more benefit of doubt to people, because I say we hire them, they were not the so-called professional coming in, right? And I want to give, like I say, I want to give them the benefit of doubt, right? Because the other thing is I feel like doesn't matter what school we go to. In the end, 3 years later, it's become your intrinsic. Right. What's intrinsic to you makes a difference, right? And so I can give you one perfect example, right? One of my top performing employee right now, okay, and the top performing is on the be able to engage, especially be able to engage with customers, engage on the sales marketing side, and like in the US, right? I mean that's another thing we should spend some time talk about, right? Even your engineering, right? It's about be able to remember we talk about the cross discipline, be able to cross discipline outdoor engineering, but be able to get into learn about how to talk to engage with customers in the sales marketing. Type of is super important, right? Super important. Right. But to that story, because I think it's actually quite interesting. So I actually got one of the partner recommended someone to us. They said this person's very good, like super, I mean, so we took him. We took the person in, and the first 9 months was just he would show up maybe 9:30, 10 in the morning, and 2 p.m. would disappear. Okay, and as a company, we are very freestyle, right? We don't, we don't micromanage and things, and all the projects did not complete, and sometimes we want to like kind of set up a meeting, right? Try to get a milestone kind of thing. I say, okay, we'll set up a meeting at 10 a.m. It's like almost guaranteed, like 9 or 9:30, message will come in, say he got an emergency at home or something. He got to go back. And like I say, this happened for 9 months, and everybody would just say that we should just cut him off. But I know he's talented. He's young. I talked to him, right? I told him, I say, you're very talented, you're young. And I say, I think you're still searching for something. Okay. And I say, if you don't feel like here's an opportunity for you, right? I think you should, like I said, I mean, if there's anything you feel like or what we can do to help you, right? Help you search what you're searching for. Let me know. And a couple of weeks later, he came to me. He said, "Hey, I found another opportunity, and much higher pay and much. I say great.
Congratulations.
I say I'm happy for you, and I just only told him, I say, doesn't matter where you go, right? Remember, only when you learn, when you get a chance to learn, that's when you are gaining something, because nobody can take it away from you. So he left. 3 months later, he called me, Jesse, can I come back? He said, Jesse, I mean, he said, I realized I missed such a big opportunity that is all things I can do. I can learn the AgilePoint. So he came back, different person.
Interesting.
Different person. But imagine if I had fired him in the first place.
Never got the person.
He probably never come back.
That's right.
But he came back now. He's a top performing.
That's right.
He's top performing. It's more like, I mean, again, right? I mean, that's when, it's about how you influence them, how you inspire them, basically, in a way. Right. And I also got another very young, graduate out of school, from one of the California State University, and then he worked in the company for email marketing for 2 years. He came here, he joined us 3 years, and obviously I have to mentor him. And the biggest mentorship I usually work with them is, again, very simple. Always put yourself in your customer's shoes, or and remember, the customer may not be real customer, maybe your colleagues. Remember, I say that think of you as think of yourself as a small startup, right? Your colleagues are actually your partners, or if you do something for, like I say, somebody will consume what you create, they are your customers, right? Have that mentality, right? Have that mentality. That's a mentality I show them. And that comes into when you write an email, right? How do you make your email easy to read? Mm-hmm. It's not like a big, you'll be surprised,
like a big
right?
paragraph.
Exactly. I mean, and the other thing, how do you make it? And somebody asks you a question, they ask you a question, you answer in an email, they ask you 5 questions. At a certain level, right? You don't just put that into emails, you turn that into more formal,
right?
Of more formal response documents, right? So a lot of those details, right? I mean, he later on, he left, right? He moved away, he left. And he told me, he said, Jesse, my goodness, the 3 years in AgilePoint. He said, I'm in this new company now, and I spend 50% as hard. I'm the top 5% automatically. Because those are, again, right, those are the, and I think those are the details. Those are the details that we don't usually pay attention. Right. But you have to make that become part of really, it's not me. It's not me oriented. It's about,
it's about your partners. It's about your partners.
Yeah.
Well, it's about the bigger team, because the bigger team works well together, everything accelerates significantly faster.
Absolutely.
So you need to be thinking about how do we make the cohesion accelerate, right? As opposed to slow down.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
And the other thing is, for example, right, we have about 160 people. And when we decided to build a second development center, right? I mean, it's still expansion in Silicon Valley. So we consider China, Taiwan. Okay, we actually tried China for 2 years and failed. Right, and then in Taiwan, we couldn't find many software developers, so we have to go to India.
Right.
Same thing, right? And we decided to go to Bangalore. Right, and everybody was telling me, you go to Bangalore, you're gonna have this nightmare. I say, what? They say, you are just gonna have this turnover nightmare, because all these biggest companies are in Bangalore, right? Why would anybody want to come to your company? They're gonna come to your company, they just move away. I can tell you that our turnover rate there is so low, because our turnover rate is more than 5% or 3%. We will not be able to do our product.
Sure.
Okay, because that's ration, right? That ration will not be, like I say, unless we really put funding in, right? And in a way, that's another thing, right? That's another thing. Why, right? Why? And I think that's where not only what we did, especially they say, hey, boss is not an Indian.
Right.
Boss is not Indian, right? And but it's really about how you, it's the same thing. Right? It's how you treat them. See, I think in India, the hierarchy is fairly, and the thing is, I really look at them. I treat everybody more like friends.
Right.
I joke with them and everything, and I think, right, that's where it's really about how you how you treat people fair, and they can see and they buy into the vision, right, and they feel like they're doing something uh, like, hey, it's not about just technology, it's actually going to potentially impact the society, right, help bridge the the divide.
Sure. That's fantastic. So I want to transition a little bit to more, you were president of NATEA for a year, right? And you were part of that organization for a long time. I'm chairman of Monte Jade. And, one of the big things that I've seen kind of in the market, and that's been kind of challenging for me to kind of observe, is this idea that, in Chinese, it's called 一盘散沙, which is like everyone does their own thing. We don't work together well. What do you think drives that? How do you think we as an Asian community can kind of break through this problem?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, the first time, as a matter of fact, I didn't know Taikang, right? I mean, the Indian organization, until I actually joined NATEA, and I have to host the U.S. Taiwan High Tech Forum conference, right? So that's when I would try to see how others do it, right? And then I joined the Taikang, and that was a really surprising to me. I mean, that's a huge surprise to me, that to see how aggregated they are together, and then they get the like the parents bring the kids in, and in a way, I feel like to some extent it's also I think it's cultural, right? Cultural, more like, hey, just find a good job, find something pay well, and then be stable, and then just kind of, as long as you kind of do, you can get by, above average, and then, don't mind too much other stuff. And I think to some extent, I mean, that's one thing. The other thing is also because the culture, it doesn't, so I think majority may not have the more like, hey, I want to, the aspiration, want to do something bigger, right? Without, imagine, right? You got 10 people together, everybody thinking about doing something bigger. Then you may not do 10 different things bigger, but you may actually come together and say, hey, this idea is the best. Let's make it bigger. But because everybody all have the same aspiration, right? But if we got together, we're like, we're like, okay, hey, I got a okay job, I got a good job, I'm paid okay. But if I can just move up a little more, and then I can pay a little more. But, and then in that case, right? In that case, I think then I think you have a less energy among our community,
right,
to see how can we work together on something bigger, right? And I think, like I say, to me, I think that to some extent that's the case. And so again, I kind of back to what what I was saying. And so it was, I mean, what we are doing, right? I told people, I say, hey, we are ahead of our competition because we got started so early in building it, right? We really, and they just started to build in the last 2, 3, 4 years. It's not enough time, but we have all, we built all this. But part of that was also, how can we, like I say, it's not perfect, right? It's not perfect, but we are leading. It's an uncharted territory. It's an innovation. We're in an uncharted territory, and we are leading. But how can we take this kind of this kind of new breakthrough, right? Expose that to among our community,
right?
Among our community, right? And so that's why, for example, we did. So we went back to Taiwan. We worked with the university that we cooperated with Taiwan University, with Taiwan University of Science and Technology, right? And also the Taipei University of Technology, right? So we work with students, try to get them to see this, right? And then we brought, some of them come to the US for the during the summer for the internship, right? So we bring students from the US universities and work with them together, right? So I believe, right? And some of the students we brought over, they are now computer science, they are not engineering, but they were able to actually change their mindset. Now they say, wow, we can actually do something, right? And I think those are the kind of things that can, I mean, so So in a way, right, we just need to give, one thing is get people to see. They are maybe at the beginning is, hey, it's possible. You can do something bigger. Right? You can do something bigger. It's possible. The effort, the challenge and effort may not be as, may not be as great as in the past because there's a breakthrough now, right? And that's one thing. The other thing is, I think it just needs more of, and one, like I said, I think I think in Asian is also, right. We when we say we don't see that, but one thing about our culture is also that when somebody do something and the whole bunch of people will follow, right? And try to replicate, right? I mean, we are very good at that as well. So that's why, like I say, this is definitely something that we can. It takes a lot more. We can explore a lot more in terms of how we can really bring this community together, but through maybe accomplish some kind of mission, maybe through nonprofit first, and then be able to take it into a success that you can even with commercial success as well.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a fantastic. I think like getting disparate groups to come together is always the hardest thing. And so my philosophy on it has been, it's pretty interesting, at least at the Monte Jade side. My simplistic goal was let's just create cadences where we get two different organizations to collaborate on an ongoing basis. And it's starting to work, at least for us, because we're taking fragmented groups and slowly building that energy. Like, I'm not setting any milestones, right? It's just slow and steady. We're going to find the ones that fit, and the ones that don't fit will just naturally go away. But if we stay focused on the mission of just being able to work together more and more, eventually we can drive to something bigger. This is almost like if we build it over time, the process, at a certain point, we're going to find what that calling is, and we'll be ready.
Absolutely.
And so it's Jesse, I want to thank you so much for spending a beautiful Saturday away from your golf game to come chat and do an interview with us today. Any kind of final words for our question? I actually have there is a question, but I actually don't know. I can't read Chinese. So it's from, I don't know, Jesse, can you read Chinese?
Let me see.
This is in the Q&A button that just popped up.
Okay. Oh, Daniel. Oh, I think there's somebody I worked before in Taiwan.
Okay. So it's not a question.
No.
Like, okay, got it. Okay. Well, never mind then. Well, again, Jesse, thank you so much for taking your time out of a great Saturday to join us on a board-to-board interview series. Again, this event was co-hosted between us and NATEA, and we really appreciate the ongoing partnership that we have with NATEA. So thank you so much. I'm going to wrap up with a little bit of logistics really quick. So just as a reminder, we've just kicked off our mentorship program, our 2020 to 21 mentorship program. We have great speakers from all of these different companies, from Kleiner Perkins, VMware, HP, Google, Salesforce, etc. Our last workshop, we had representatives from Salesforce, Cisco, and HP speak. And so this is all about Asian leadership development. If you know anyone that is interested or you yourself want to apply, our program is open for next year. This program is a 6-month-long program. Please check our website at montejade.org/mentorship for additional information. Coming up, we have a couple of great interviews coming up as well. On the 19th of November, we have Wen Shea, general partner at Kleiner Perkins, coming out to speak. We have on 12/19, Stuart Wu. He's a co-founder of Cortina and Ultima. Ultima was acquired by Broadcom many years ago. Chris Ye, he's the author of Blitzscaling. And we have some other great speakers as well, as you can see on this list. So if you want to check out other websites or other events, please go to our website at montejade.org and you can see the other events. We want to thank, again, our sponsors, Deloitte, VenturePack, Law, UMC, Silicon Motion, New York Life, and most obviously for all their ongoing support. Thank you so much. We wouldn't be here without your support. And Gary, are you still on the line? And obviously Gary, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, we also would like to thank our sponsor, from Tyco, from TTA, Supermicro, CHT Global, Freestone, E3, and all our sponsors. Yeah, please support our sponsor like you support us.
Great. Thank you so much again for joining us on this weekend. We'll look forward to seeing you at the future event. Thank you so much, and that will conclude our event. Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
All right, thanks, Gary.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.